when you're doing it and you're 12, you don't understand it or appreciate it. You're not supposed to.
Yeah.
But now that I've obviously gotten older and now coaching, it's the discipline behind those things. It's the commitment, all those things that you mentioned, really, that they will benefit regardless of how long their hockey career is or football career is.
From the grit and the grind to successful minds, live from the entertainment capital of the world, your hosts, Jillian Batchelor and Daryl Hannah.
Hey, guys, it's Jillian Batchelor
and Daryl Hannah, the Batchelor Hannah Group.
We are with Vegas Real Talk, and we're coming to you today to talk about some other really cool, interesting things and how Vegas has evolved, right, Daryl?
Well, I mean, this is super special to me because I was getting ready to move out of Las Vegas. To be honest, I lived here my whole life.
I wasn't going to let him move, you guys. He just thought he was going to move, but he wasn't.
And I, you know what? There's one thing that kept me here, and I think for the whole city as a whole,
has really bonded us.
Has been the Vegas Golden Knights. And
Vegas Golden Knights, VGK, you guys.
Major League sports team, and my son got into it pretty early, and back in 2017, and
it changed the whole
met this guy
right?
that you're getting ready to meet, and I am not lying when I say it's changed my life and my family's life.
And how many years your son's been doing it? 6 years?
He's been doing about 5.
Okay, about 5 years.
5 years.
And before that, was your son into any type of sports? We're talking sports, you guys. We talked
about
GK.
He played soccer, basketball, everything. He just kind of kicked around, nothing like really. But it was Marc-Andre Fleury who. Well, we could talk about this later. But you know what? Let's introduce our guest.
Let's introduce our guest, you guys. All right, so Daryl Hannah, I'm gonna let you do the honors. Who do we have with us today?
So the one and only Brian Salcido, who has played in the NHL. He's played in Europe for 10 years. Like, he's got an amazing background. He's been an amazing coach to my son and a mentor. And so it's nice to have you, Brian.
Hey, what's going on?
Yeah, Brian, thanks for being on our show today. So tell us a little bit about you. So Daryl gave you a little quick intro. You played in the NHL, right? What team did you play for?
So I was drafted and I played for the Anaheim Ducks.
Okay. Everyone's heard of the Ducks. Wait, you're a former
California.
Ducks player. Okay, that's great.
Yeah, so I grew up in California, and that, I was
Junior Kings guy.
Yep. Yeah. And that was pretty neat, play for Anaheim, but played all over. I was in the minors for a little bit. And then just about the time I had met my wife, Renee, we went overseas. We played all over Czech Republic.
I didn't know you were married when you went over there.
Wow.
We were boyfriend and girlfriend.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. So it was a big jump. Yeah, it was a big jump. But we played all over. We played in Sweden, Russia, Finland.
So let's talk about that really quick, because this is something I think people don't talk about enough. So you were going to be a pro player of a sport, and you brought your girlfriend along with you, who is now your then wife, or then girlfriend, now wife. How was it on her? Because as a sports player's wife or husband, let's say you guys weren't being sexist, how was it on the spouse? I want to know about that.
You know what? I guess just similarly to why, Daryl fell in love with the sport is the tight-knit groups that you make. It really makes things easier.
Yeah.
For the families, for the wives, the girlfriends, the people that have, the children. It was, I'm sure, very, very hard because she sacrificed a lot. And so a lot of times now that we're done traveling and I'm done with my career here, I have to kind of constantly remind myself, maybe when, we feel things that we all feel.
Yeah.
But, she was part of something that I would, she sacrificed for me. It's important to remember that now too. For me.
And so how many years were you playing for when you guys were together? You played for
So we met my very first year pro, playing in the minors. She's from Portland, Maine, and I'm from California. And we met, I was playing in Portland. So we met.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So then, So we're kind of veering off, but that's what I like about these podcasts, is that they could be natural and real, and it could be, we go organically on what comes up in the conversation.
Over the place, that's for sure.
So so you take your girlfriend at the time with you, and then now did you guys get engaged overseas, married overseas? Did you get married here? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so it's, we went overseas and we thought we could kind of experience, what we had thought, would be really fun experience.
And it must have been fun.
Yeah.
I mean,
absolutely.
You're over in Europe, traveling around. You had no kids then, right?
Right. We had no kids, and at the time I was kind of on the bubble and up and down, and that made it really hard for both of us here and where we settled. And so when we were overseas, we kind of did it and
made it work.
Yeah. And
I love that.
Looking back on it, you know, obviously everyone kind of appreciates it more when you get older.
Yeah.
But we really appreciate the time that we had overseas. It was a really good experience.
Very nice. It's a nice bonding experience for your relationship. I always say like traveling. So I'm a big traveler. So I think it's really, really important. I think traveling, especially to different countries, just really enriches who you are as a person, because you see how other people live, you see how other people eat, you see about the people that have more, the people that have less, and
so
how happy they
in
are.
America, right?
Oh, so different. So I think it's really, really important to have that enrichment. And I know we're going to talk a little bit about how the sports are enriching the children's lives, but I always say too, that's why I was really big with having my kids travel. My kids traveled everywhere. They had more stamps in their passport than most people did by their adult age. But it was important because I wanted them to see and learn other cultures and food and music and experiences and life. And, you know, they still have a lot to grow with that and learn from that. But it's really important. So I think I see how it can enrich a relationship as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know for myself, at least personally, it's opened up who I am and it's allowed me to, you know, kind of open out of it. I was a little shy growing up and stuff. It's really allowed me to open up my shell, and it's forced me to learn new languages or try new foods or maybe, you know, do things that we're uncomfortable with.
Well, it's funny too, because we just came back from Quebec. We were there for a few weeks.
Playing hockey, you guys.
Which is like you're in France, or I mean, everything's French, right?
Yeah.
And for me, I haven't really been a lot out of the country. I've been to Mexico, I've been to Canada. That's about it. But that was kind of my first taste of like Europe, I guess, right?
Yeah, absolutely,
And it was great having him because
Like innate,
for
like
everybody, the kids, the parents, we're all just kind of lost, and he's at the front of the bus, like telling us what to, like, this is what's going to happen. You know, so it was awesome.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
that's a good segue actually into what we're actually here and starting to talk about today is you're coaching the Junior Vegas Golden Knights team, okay, which is a junior, give me the age groups.
12U is what he's the head coach, but he's kind of like over kind of all of them.
Yeah.
So hockey, 12U, tell us about that.
Yeah. So our team is the 12U team, and we play, I guess, at the AA level, which means a lot of different things, but I oversee all the coaches and for the whole club, and that goes from 8U to, you know, high school level players.
So here's what I know. Now you have Daryl next to me, who is an extreme sport, like teen sport
Extreme
dad,
hockey.
right? Yeah, extreme hockey. And then you have me over here who knows nothing about it. So this is going to be really good banter because you have the two of us with two different perspectives. So from what I know, please, and you pipe in what I know if I'm wrong, right? But what I know is when you do basically any club sport, it's like the intensity of it. It's not like, hey, somebody's doing something on a hobby. It's not like your kid's going to play soccer one day a week on Saturday morning.
And it's all
if you
here
miss
in
the
town.
game, it's no big deal, whatever. This is like, from what I see with Daryl's kid, and you guys, you know me, so I might embellish a little bit or exaggerate a little bit, but it's like his kid's out at 5 a.m. practicing, and then, you know, you go to school, and then you're practicing in the afternoon, and then you have a game at night, and you guys might not even get dinner together because you guys are on the ice, and then you guys are sitting in the rink, and then, you know, he's practicing 4 or 5 days a week or having games, and then you guys are traveling for hockey. Sometimes you're gone 4 days a week, and the kid's here 3 days a week, and then you're home, and then you have home games, and you have away games, and you're traveling over the country, and it's very expensive.
During the season, that's exactly what it is.
And, yeah, it's very so from being a parent that is not a sports parent. My kids are not big in sports. My husband wasn't big in sports. My I wasn't raised in sports. So when you hear that from the outsider's perspective, you're like, oh my gosh, this is so intense. You're like, wait, when does the kid sleep? When does he do his homework? When does he play with his friends? When does he? And I get it. It's like you're creating these little tiny pro athletes. I mean, again, this is the outside perspective, right? So correct me if I'm wrong, which is great because just an outside parent, I see the benefits of that. You're creating dedication. You're creating being determined. You're creating the whole working together as a team. I mean, all these skills are things you're going to need later in life, even if you're never in sports again. If Hendrix grows up and becomes an accountant, he's still going to need these skills that he's learning today, how to be a team player. I mean, think of how many kids nowadays, they go and get a job at Tilly's, let's just say, and they don't know how to be a team player and just get along with the other teenagers that are folding the clothes. I mean, you need team sports mentality your whole life, right?
Yeah, no, you nailed it. You really did. And we tell them that you're going to have to be a a better person longer than you're going to have to be a hockey player.
Yeah, because I mean, the odds are like what? How many of these, and not just hockey, but like how many of these kids go out and become pro?
1%.
Like less than 1%, right? But it's so it's about the bigger picture. I feel like. I mean, that's great. They love hockey. They're playing. You guys are enjoying it. The parents are enjoying it. But the odds of them actually becoming like a pro and a NHL hockey player is low. But it's what else are you getting from it, right?
Absolutely, yeah. You know, it is very slim. I guess what are there 30 teams, and each team has 20 players, so it's very few. Hundreds of hockey players, 300, whatever.
There's hundreds of hockey players and hundreds of thousands of junior players.
Yeah.
So, and it's kind of this, you know, it's the same thing with every sport. And obviously,
baseball, all of it.
When you're doing it and you're 12, you don't understand it or appreciate it. You're not supposed to.
Yeah.
But now that I've obviously gotten older and now coaching, it's the discipline behind those things. It's the commitment, all those things that you mentioned, really, that they will benefit regardless of how long their hockey career is or football career is, anything like that.
Yeah, because coach is big, like in the locker room. It's like, okay, stop throwing your jersey on the ground. That's a $5,000 fine in the NHL if you do that. So all the kids are like, if they see one of the jerseys on the ground, you can't do that. You know, it's like, so just those things, you know, learn. Like my son, before hockey, is just wherever he took his clothes off, that's where they landed, you know. But now he's like, well, I'm not even doing it, which is like great. He's folding them up, he's hanging his clothes up, he's putting his shoes nice, he's putting his phone away. Like that stuff's from hockey.
So we talk about discipline a lot, and think about it. I mean, Daryl, you've been a business owner of multiple different businesses, very highly successful, multi-million-dollar businesses that have been producing over the years. And what is the key to all of them? They could all be different businesses. It's discipline and commitment, right?
Yeah, discipline. And just like we teach with the kids, it's about being consistent.
Yep.
It's about making sure you go to. It's not just
being
about games.
Committed to it. So your son's not getting up at 5 a.m. and then practicing and then going to school and then going back to practice and then going to a game and not getting home till 8 o'clock at night if he's not committed.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, he's not doing that because he's like, oh, maybe I'll make it. You guys as parents aren't having your kid go traveling, taking time off work, taking time away from the family. If you're not committed.
When these junior players, like, such a big commitment for the parents.
It is.
The kid, like, my son would not be where he's at if I didn't like wake up at 5 a.m. and make sure he gets out. He's not going to do that on his own. I'm talking about when he was younger. He might do it now, but back when he was, 8U, 10U, no way. I mean, I had to get up every morning. I had to make sure. And the money commitment, too.
Oh, the money. And the travel commitment. I mean, I'll be honest, you're gone sometimes more than you're here. And the travel commitment's a big deal.
Season.
I mean, not every parent. And luckily, in your situation, you had two parents who were able to go. But I'm sure there's lots of parents that can't have both parents go. No, if you're a lawyer and you got to try a case, you can't be like, "Hey, sorry, case, I'm not going to be there. Peace. I'm going to my son's hockey game in Boston for 3 days." If you're a defense attorney and there's a trial, or you're a police officer and there's a big, huge issue, or whatever.
Some of the kids on the team, they've got doctors as parents. They have nurses.
Yeah, and they can't just go and police. So I mean, obviously, you can have one parent or some kind of person to do it, but
when we went to, as a perfect example, when we went to Quebec, the dad would go for the first half, and then the mom flew in, and the dad went home, and
imagine if you have multiple kids too. That's the other thing.
Yeah,
some of these parents have got to have multiple kids. I mean, in your case, you're lucky because your daughter is much older and she's out of the house. But if you had a 3-year-old at home, if you had an 8-year-old at home, if you got another 15-year-old at home, and your 15-year-old's in volleyball, you're not going to be like, sorry, you're going to sacrifice for your brother. You're going to go and you're going to miss a week's worth of school. Or you got a kid in high school that just doesn't even play sports, but they're going for an academic scholarship. Yeah. Like I got a daughter right now trying to graduate high school early, and she's trying to go for an academic scholarship. I try to get her to take an extra day off for spring break. She's like, no, I won't miss school. So then you'd have a parent who you would have to split your time, right? Especially if you have multiple kids, you'd have to.
No, you got it. Yep.
Well, there was parents in Quebec that had to leave a few days early because their kid was playing in Boston or whatever. And they had to drive down to Boston to meet their 14-year-old kid or their 12-year-old. So the mom stayed here, and you see that all the time.
Yeah, because you have to. Because I mean, as a parent, you have to be equal to all your kids as best you can, and you don't want one kid to ever feel like, oh, I got left behind from my brother, my sister, my whatever. Yeah. And you when you talk about this, because we're talking about this in sports, you got to think about it. Imagine the kids that like become an actor. And they have brothers and sisters, and their parents, I'm sure, sacrifice to take them to acting classes and take them to headshots. And you think about, or even, I hate to say it, even when you got a sibling that's sick and they get a lot of attention that way, And
well, you see a lot of siblings like doing their homework over while the kids are practicing.
Yeah, I definitely try to, when we're talking to the groups, I try to make sure that thank the siblings for being there. We always try to keep them involved by
he'll have the siblings come in
and that's pretty cool. I try to make sure that the players know that what they're sacrificing, the time that they're spending, at the rink doing nothing or ripping around. And when they're ripping around, the parents, having to corral them. So they're a big part of this too. Really, it's just a big team.
It is.
Yep.
And I love that because, and that's kind of why I just organically wanted to bring that up. I think it's important for people to see what's behind the scenes. If you are not, because I have friends that do the same thing with club baseball. It's not even just that it's hockey. It's any type of club sport where it's like, that kid is like playing 7 days a week and they're practicing on their free time and they're
baseball,
like,
soccer, football, all of
it. It's intense, right? It's super intense. So I love the skills that you get from any sport. Again, any kind of organized sport like that. I love the skills that you're teaching your kids. And some of them they're probably not going to appreciate until they're like 18, 20, 25. They're like, oh, that's where that came from. And I love how, like Daryl always talks about how his hockey family is like a big family.
It is.
And, they all take care of each other. They all know each other. So that's super great.
Oh, some of the best people I know on the earth have come from just the last 5 years I've been in hockey.
Yeah.
And I wonder for you, because you came from such a high level, and actually we were just talking about this before we started filming, that you've come down to teach these kids. What's been your greatest joy teaching the kids? Like,
good question. I think for me, it's after hockey, I didn't really know what was going to happen or what I'd be good at or where what I wanted to do. So it's been really rewarding I'm really thankful for all the players and parents and students, I guess maybe, that they really make me feel like I have something to offer. It's been.
Do you still feel that like you had to feel important when you were playing in Europe and not important, but you felt like accomplished?
Sure. No,
and
absolutely. But perhaps, you're in it and that's what I did. And I don't know if I took it for granted, but, I guess maybe I just had never seen it from the other side. And so if people, it means something now if someone came and said, hey, we watched you play, or there's an old Salcido jersey out like that. It's like, whoa, I was part of this person's life. And that's really cool.
Yeah.
But when you're in it, you don't really think about stuff like that. So I guess now, having been in that world for, with all those, the people similar to me, that community, having come out of it made me feel like, I knew something about hockey and that I could make a difference, and that, it makes me happy that the kids are happy and learning.
Oh, yeah. And who better to learn from?
You feel invested. Yeah. So,
because I'll to be honest, man, I see some coaches that are just like, oh my God.
Yeah. Well,
like they're just tired, or like, what do you mean by that? Like they're just tired, worn out, like they don't put their all into it?
No, I think there's some coaches out there that really never played hockey. I think there's some of those out there. And when you watch how Salcido and even his dad, Frank, how they coach, and then you look at some of these others, it's like, it's night and day.
Yeah.
And I think just like refs, there's probably a shortage of coaches.
Oh yeah, very much. Yeah, very much.
Yeah, so
especially in the desert, you would think. So speaking of that, so do you have any friends that are currently playing on Vegas Golden Knights, like on the pro team?
Yeah, so we just our relationship with the team, and in the spring and summertime, I run some drills for the guys and skill work, or the Silver Knights now a little bit. So we rub elbows here and there with each other.
Well, it's cool too, because like every once in a while, like Coach Cassidy came on the ice one time. March, you saw, was on the ice, and they'll come around, and the kids obviously just get.
Like idolize them.
Oh,
it's very cool. I mean, we've had a couple of our clients and that are VGK players, and it's really amazing what it's done for the city.
Oh, it's
Vegas
turned this city around.
Who would have ever thought that Vegas was going to be like a hockey town? Like, that's insane,
Never.
Right?
I mean, I remember when they started building the stadium, I go, that's the biggest waste of money I've ever seen in my life. Yeah. Hockey will never make it. I hated hockey. When it came, I always got pissed off because it came on when the NBA finals were going. It was always the Stanley Cup.
Yeah.
I was always like, God, get this trash out of here. I want to watch. Basketball was like my thing up until hockey. And then, man.
God, you go to a Vegas Golden Knights game now, and it's like a freaking party.
Oh.
I mean, it's intense. It's great.
Yeah, it was a VGK game that changed me and my son and my wife, my whole family's life. We went to a game, and it was when we were playing the Washington for the Stanley Cup.
Yeah.
It was the final game.
The Capitals.
Yeah, because my son's like, comes up to me one day and he goes, Dad, I want to be a goalie. And I'm like, okay, like a soccer goalie? And he's like, no, I want to be a hockey goalie. And I'm like, what are you talking about? He goes, do you know that we're in the finals? And I go, I didn't even know the season started.
Yeah.
I really knew nothing
not in
about
touch
him.
with
I
it.
didn't follow him, anything. And I'm like, really?
We were so close. That was our first year.
Can we go to a game? And I'm like, sure. Didn't know how much tickets cost, but for 2 tickets, it was not cheap.
Yeah.
And I remember me and my son went, and it was just like, oh, this is amazing.
Yeah.
Okay. Like, I get it now. Because my son's explaining what, icing is and the blue line. I had no idea.
Yeah.
So how did he start? Was he watching it?
My son learned about hockey, me and him both, off at the time it was PS4.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because the game's so realistic, and they really do call the penalties, and all the rules are the same as they are in hockey. And that's where we started, was in playing it on PS4. My son we had 2 garbage cans set up. He had a baseball
in the
mitt
street.
we were playing in the
Yeah.
backyard and stuff. It was before he even knew how to skate. And he
Yeah.
wanted to be a goalie because he really loved Marc-Andre Fleury.
Yeah, he was the best. I can't believe we traded Fleury. That was dumb.
Oh, I know, man.
So
We had to, though, I think.
So Brian, so tell us a little bit more. Okay, so before this, you were a pro hockey player. Now you're a hockey coach. What does the future hold for you? What are you going to be doing in the future?
Oh
How long are you
man,
gonna
that's
do
a
this
scary
for?
question, right? That's I'm kind so I said I didn't know what was going to happen afterwards. We lived here for a while to hang our coats over the
Yeah.
off season, and all of a sudden the Knights are here and we're digging our feet in and more and developing relationships, and I'm kind of just riding this wave as it goes right now.
Well, I remember when the Knights were blowing up, and my son went to learn to skate, and then with City National Arena, and it works a little bit different than at the time there was Sobe. And my son, they had to go to learn to skate, then he had to go to learn to play, and then he had to do cross ice. Like, they had this very regimented thing, right? And I remember he was just coming out of learn to skate. He hadn't even done I think he was in the middle of learn to play. And one of my friends' son was playing over at Sobe in house league, and they were like, "Your son needs to come over here and play games. Period. That's how he's going to learn." And I'm like, "Well, he still has to learn to play, and then he's got to go to cross ice." He goes, "No, dude. He needs to come over here to Sobe right now." And so we did. We went over there. It was like 3 weeks into the house league had started, but Hendricks suited up, played player. It was awesome. He loved it. But I remember when this mythical person walks in, and they're like, "Oh, there's Brian Salcido."
Oh, get out of here!
Yeah. Well, you remember your jersey's up on the inside there, and everyone's like, "Yeah, that's the guy, Salcido," and he's like doing this.
You were coaching already at that time?
No.
Yeah,
Were you doing skills?
Yeah, I was barely coaching.
High stakes hockey.
Yeah,
was like a class that you could join, and of course I 100% paid for it, put Hendricks into the class, and they were doing things with parachute, like put a parachute and have you skate as hard as you can, just crazy stuff, right? And that was where I met him, was during those times, where Hendricks was just learning, and then.
Well, now like hockey's become like a business, because I know I was going to say, like, on top of, obviously we know the Vegas Golden Knights, and that's obviously a business, but we've had a lot of clients that are like putting together like hockey rinks for kids, for youth, that are opening more and more, because there really was like 2, right, when you guys started?
There was there was 2. There was 3. There was the City National, Sobe, and then Las Vegas Ice Center.
Yeah,
Those
and
were
so
the
now
3.
we have clients who are like coming to us, getting commercial space, putting together hockey rinks. I told you I have a client doing that right now
trying to
with
do
his
it, yeah.
kids. They got approved. They're building it out. It's all happening. So we do a lot of that with our commercial real estate clients too. And it's funny, to me, it's fun to see. Growing up in Las Vegas, living here since I was 6 years old, and seeing what this city can develop into, and seeing where the commercial aspect of it comes through. And it's also giving the kids something to do, because people are always like, "Oh, you live in a casino. Like, what is there to do family friendly?" And actually what a lot of people don't realize is that Vegas can be very family friendly. There are lots of things coming out for the kids to do. Keep your kids going, depending if it's academics, or you want to do skills, or you want to do sports, or whatever it is you want to do. There are a lot of family friendly things to do in Vegas.
Sure.
Wouldn't you agree?
And because of the Vegas Knights' success, now you've got basketball, baseball's coming, football. All those are coming after the Knights.
And the Raiders came, and it was cool because they were established, but like the Knights were like a set of misfits, which really showed, I feel like, more than just, okay, hockey's here. It was like, hockey's here. We're coming in with this team of like misfits, basically, because that's what they were calling themselves. And they blew up.
Oh yeah.
It was really crazy the way it happened, and
Everybody
it
was like,
dynamic.
Lights and bumper stickers and
Oh,
everything.
yeah.
Oh, you
The
see somebody in the
energy was
grocery store with the
crazy.
Vegas Golden Knights jersey on, you're like, "What's up, VGK?"
Yeah, and still to this day is just amazing. I do agree. When Fleury left, there was about one season that kind of was a bummer.
It was a sad. I think
Everybody was
yeah.
kind
I
of
feel like
like.
the city has like a
effect, yeah.
sadness over it. You
But
know?
now we've got Eichel, and we got all these amazing guys coming. We got Coach Cassidy, so now it's like I feel like the excitement's back.
Yeah.
We're seeing more butts in the seats.
So Brian, where
know.
do you see this going? The youth hockey right now is what you're really into, but where do you see this going?
Are we going to win a championship or what?
It's hard. I mean, it's if winning was easy, everybody would do it, right?
For sure.
It's a cool time right now, and it's the trade deadline, right? So you start to see these teams and where they think they're at, if they're making a lot of moves or not, or selling or buying,
Or saving money? Or
Yeah. So it's an exciting time, but chemistry and injuries and goaltending is all a big part of it.
yeah.
So it'll be tough
Man.
to see.
It's tough cup to win.
Yeah.
And it's I think it really helps a lot that it seems like we've got an owner that's committed to win a cup.
Yeah.
Because he's paying a lot of money.
Oh yeah. 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 No, I mean, I don't know. Sometimes your biggest regrets are ones of omission than commission, right? So at least he's trying.
He's trying.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think he's trying for sure. Yeah, that's fun.
I mean, I think, and Daryl, how do you think that this is going to bleed over? You talked a little bit about other sports. How do you think it's going to bleed over into our city? Do you think there's more growth for this?
For hockey?
Or not just hockey in itself, but like other major, like youth sports, professional sports?
100%. 100%. And, I'm just talking about hockey. We are so underdeveloped when it comes to ice.
Yeah,
Like,
and that's what we're
need
talking about. Our
ice.
clients are developing more ice rinks right now.
Foley's
They're putting
thinking
together-
about building one over by the M, a couple more sheets.
Yeah.
So we got a lot of growth for Vegas in hockey, 100%. And, one of the things that we battle with, we're such a new market to hockey,
Yep.
is all these other markets like, correct me if I'm wrong, but like LA, Phoenix, California in general. So there are so many kids and so many rinks of ice that they actually put their teams together with birth year. Right. So like our team is mixed with 2010s and 2009s. It really works out great when you can get a group of kids together when they're 8 years old, and that group stays together somewhat. You always lose a few, but the core nucleus of them go together. The way that it's been working out with my son, just because of how new it is, and we don't have as many kids to pull from. Every other year, these kids play together.
Yeah, they
because
rotate.
Like right now, all the kids we have played together for a long time. But now moving up to Bantam, it's going to get splintered again.
Yeah.
But then like the second year of Bantam, they're going to come back together again.
Yeah. Yeah.
So let's talk about what if I'm a parent, I want to get my kid into do this type of competitive sporting that you're doing. What does it run? What's it going to cost me?
Yeah.
Travel, coaches, equipment, time of work. Like, what's it going to run me? Am I looking at 20,000, 50,000, 80,000, 100,000? What am I looking at?
It's a big number. It's in the thousands. I think there's a lot of hidden costs that people don't realize.
Yep.
Is obviously there's kind of that sticker price of all the ice and jerseys and coaching, stuff like that. But like you mentioned, every time you got to travel for games, and we're unfortunately in a place where there's not a whole lot of teams quite yet around us.
Here that we can play locally.
Yeah.
So traveling means school off or work off or hotel rooms or eating on the road, and that's something as an administrator I always have to keep in mind when we're planning stuff like that. So that that's not part of what you pay for when you get the jersey and the ice time and things like that.
Because the actual cost for the hockey, it's a big cost teaching them how to skate.
Yeah.
Because they need to learn to skate first. So you got to learn to skate, learn to play, play some cross ice, play some house league before you start traveling.
Yeah.
So there's a few years of learning how to do
So
that.
if I'm traveling, Brian, and if I have a kid like in your group right now,
Yeah.
what does an average parent expect to pay a year?
Yeah, so good question. And, I guess kind of before I answer that is where we are is I like to think that we're, for our level and where we are, very prestigious 12U teams. So, at that age group, give or take, I mean, you could be anywhere between the, maybe $4,000 and $12,000 range. And that's from like 10U all the way up to, 16, very high competitive teams that travel a lot, require a lot of coaching or or good coaching. But if you were, 12U at, say, like the house league level where they're not traveling as much, things like that, that's, several $100s.
But when you're saying $4,000 to $12,000, that's before all the travel and the food and the expenses. So you could spend $30,000, and then is that with extra coaches too? Because you're talking about private
30
coaching
to
in the
40
morning?
grand.
So yeah, really, I mean, it's a lot of money, and really, if you go to California or other places, it's even more expensive because the cost of ice is more expensive.
Yeah.
The three things is coaching, consistency, and competition that people really want are important. So coaching, people aren't just gonna come to your club or your team or whatever with poor coaching. Coaching is expensive, and then you got to pay for their travel and traveling. That's a big cost. So.
Yeah, because we all pay a little bit of money every month for the coaches' travel.
So you guys, did you hear that though? I think Daryl Hannah said about $40,000 a year you guys with traveling. So it's expensive sport.
And I'll tell you, it depends on how lavish you want to travel too, because it depends on what kind of car you're going to rent. And I have a freaking kid who's got a bag that you can fit bodies inside of. So it's like, I got to go rent the Excel Yukon or whatever. It's expensive. It's expensive. Rental cars are expensive. But I couldn't put them in a Prius.
So let me ask you a question, Brian, too, since you mentioned something that I've had I have a good girlfriend, we talk about this all the time, because her son does baseball. And that kid is like round the clock baseball. He's always doing it. He's with all these coaches and he's at games and it's very intense. And so one of the things that we talk about a lot in our community is the education behind it, because they don't travel as much as I think you guys do, but they do still travel. And so a lot of times she's off on like a Friday and off on like a Monday. And I'll say she has told me a couple times, like, that's hard on her kids, and every kid's different. Some kids are going to be super bright and super like, hey, I could pick up the work and I could cram it into those 3 days. And but some kids, it's like, especially when they're younger, it's difficult on them. And she tells me all the time, she goes, I think he's like lagging behind. Then she's trying to find a tutor in places, but she's like trying to squeeze the tutor in between practices and in between sports and in between this. And she's, sometimes they're out of the house from 5 a.m. till at 9 o'clock at night between coaching and school and playing and practice, and then trying to get with the tutor. So have you seen, either Daryl or Brian, have you seen where it's affected their education because you're gone so much?
I'm sure, at least to some degree, absolutely, I'm sure that's true. We always let them know that school always comes first, and I teach them the lessons that I had to learn. And, if I ever have a complaint from a parent or from a player, not complaint, but, an issue with school, I always tell them they're not, it's if school comes first, and if there's something like that, you're not playing hockey.
So some kids have sat out of tournaments.
Yeah.
So let me ask you a question on that. So like, I only know high school sports. So like, let's say you go to a high school and you want to play on the football team. They'll tell you, hey, if you don't have XYZ grade point average,
sure, right.
you can't play. But you guys are a club sport. You're not tied into the school. So is that the same thing? Like, do you guys say, hey, every kid's got to have a 4.0 average, whatever it might be?
I think it comes down to the coach.
Yeah, so I would like to, that's a good rule. I understand that. I think it's more like a guideline, really,
So how do they do that? Do they submit you their grades?
No, but you certainly at older.
He has asked for their report cards
at
before.
older levels, yeah, certainly.
Yeah.
And when they go on trips, they might have study halls, stuff like that.
Okay.
But I'm at 12U, and I haven't heard much of an issue as far as like maybe I'll sit him, not sit him, but the parents will let me know that he's not coming to practice because
that's typically what happens. Like in the travel part is because I was the manager this year or co-manager, and they, the parents will come up to you and go, hey, I'm having an issue with my son, not really doing really well, and I'll go tell Brian, and then he'll handle it. And it doesn't happen a lot. But I can tell you, like my son is one of the kids that has a hard time.
Because luckily you guys are still 12, but if they were 16, it could affect them not graduating high school.
Oh yeah,
for sure.
I mean, if their grades are low,
but they know that coach is going to be like on them if they don't. So it's the one thing that kind of keeps, even more so than his parents. I think he's more afraid of coach than he is of us.
And that's actually, that's a good thing. I feel like because it just teaches them accountability. Like, hey, you want to play sports because you love it and you're passionate about it, kid. But at the same point, there's other things. Just like, hey, we all go to work, and you might love certain parts of your job, and there's certain parts you don't love, but you still got to do them all.
Oh yeah.
So it teaches them that responsibility. Like, hey,
and coach has always been,
but you got to also do this.
School before hockey. Like, if there's times where Hendricks has, he's got to go to a school function, or he's not, he's way behind in his homework, so he's going to miss a practice. Coach is always like, okay, totally understands it.
That's good to hear, because like I said, as a parent like me, I have no idea, because my kids don't do any sports on a competitive level by any means, just for fun. So it's good to kind of know that it's not like, that there is a balancing factor, there's an accountability factor, and that's great that you instill that in them.
Yeah, no, thank you, because and you said it earlier, is really that you need to carry them on
life skills,
something else. And so setting your priorities, finding the balance, because you probably don't like doing the homework because of the math that you have to do, but it's not about the math all the time, and you're going to learn that, but it's about sitting down and doing the math when you don't want to, or you'd rather do something else, or or whatever. You're
being
not
accountable.
I think is really, really important.
I mean, and those life skills are sometimes more important, in my opinion, than school skills. I mean, look, I haven't used chemistry a whole lot in my life. I'm not a chemist. Now, if I was, that would be different. But I've learned, but I have learned and used my street skills quite often, and in business and all of that. Yeah, so it's really important that you get that, and team building. I mean, at any company that you work at, or any job that you have, even as an entrepreneur, you have to know how to work with other individuals,
with other people.
And a lot of people don't have those skills, or at least a lot of our youth right now are kind of lacking that whole. So I think it's important that they have that, and I think sports really does instill that
for sure
into children, and it's hard. At times it's hard.
And that's what I love about hockey too, because I've been around football, I've been around basketball, so I played soccer for 10 years. I have never seen a sport that self-policed itself so well. Yeah. It's like with all these other sports, it doesn't happen. But with hockey, even if a kid gets out of line in the locker room, like, you're going to hear it. And we haven't got to that point yet in 12U, but you're going to get clocked. Like, if you don't like straighten up, like, it's cool. Because it really is, it keeps the locker room strong. And we have had a few instances where we had some players on the team that weren't acting right. And it wasn't coach, and it wasn't me, and it wasn't the assistant coach that straightened it out. It was a lot of times it comes from the kids inside.
So let me ask you another question. So, in everything, so I have a little bit of experience years and years and years ago. I had a daughter who used to love to do beauty pageants. But it's the same with sports, all sports, anything with your kids. You will have parents who... get a little crazy, even with school. You have parents who will get a little crazy. Like my sister's a school teacher, 3rd grade. There are parents that will come in and be like, why did my kid get an F? And she'd be like, well, they didn't do the assignment. Well, I don't care, change it. Like, no, your kid got an F because they earned an F. That's why they got an F. So in anything involved with children, you have parents who sometimes go a little loony. Have you ever had that? Daryl's laughing. Have you ever had that where you had to be like, whoa, 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 whoa? Because I can imagine, especially in a sport where the parents are spending so much money and so much time, that if they don't like your call, or they don't like that you did seat their kid out because their grades aren't good, or whatever, or the kids are policing each other, ever have the parents try to get a little crazy, like, don't have your kid police my kid, or whatever, right? Yeah. Have you ever had those scenarios, and do you have any funny one, like a funny story you could tell us?
So, yes, I have many of those. It happens a lot, sadly. At first, when I started doing this, I used to be really bothered by it. I used to get very jaded, and I would take it home with me. But the more and more I've seen that it's just...
the more it's happened.
It's just part of this. It's just part of it. And there will be something. You try to keep that amount of people, or, percentage-wise down. But in some way, shape, or form, it's going to happen. So I've become better at dealing with it. I guess, it's happened a lot. I don't know.
One of our
girlfriends,
Daryl and I have a girlfriend who, her son is also in hockey. And I think she said that, like, some moms actually physically got into an altercation. Like, one punched the other one at a hockey game.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, whoa, people calm down. We don't need physical violence here.
I think because this is my 4th season with Coach, and every season he gets a little better, where he's like, setting proper expectations up front.
And you just got to shut it down immediately if people get crazy.
Yeah.
And Coach will tell everybody this is the one thing. He's like, look, I'll talk to you about anything, but do not come up to me and talk to me about playing time. That's one thing I won't discuss with you. Don't even try.
They're like, my kid needs to be on the ice more. Put my kid back in. Don't bench my kid. Yeah. Okay, got it.
Yeah, that happens. And, it's just... that's one of the big complaints. That's one you get a lot.
Have you ever just
right?
wanted to like trip one of the moms or dads? You don't have to say who.
Oh, yeah.
But you've been like, just come here. I'm just going to trip you. Like,
Yeah, well, you know, this is our first interview, so you know, I
We'll
could
go
warm
nice.
up to some of that stuff. I
we'll
can
go
warm up
nice.
to that.
I mean, you know what? And the funny thing is, it's just like everything else. Like I said, it's even in school.
Yeah,
I mean,
every
my
sport.
sister's a school teacher, and the parents get mad. Like, you know, my kid got an F. Well, they left the paper blank and turned it in. Like, then they earned the F, and people are like, I don't want to hear that.
Yeah.
You know, it's hard. I think as a parent, it's hard to hear anything negative about your kid, and even if you're benching their kid because there's somebody who might be doing a little better, that's hard for them to hear and hard for them
But
to accept.
anytime though a kid gets benched or doesn't have playing time, it's a direct cause because of something either they're not doing, they're not trying.
Or something they did they shouldn't have
It
done.
is, yeah.
Yeah, there's a reason, but the parents don't want to hear that, right?
Oh, for sure.
The parents are like, I'm paying for this. You know,
Yeah.
I've taken my time out of work. Like, you better put my kid in. You're like, no, your kid's being a
It's
jerk
a tough
right now.
balancing act. I'm glad I'm not the coach.
No, it is. It's really hard, and I really think that being a coach has helped me become a better dad, and vice versa. But
great.
there's my son was playing, you know, soccer and short field, and I'm sure he didn't even know which net to shoot at. And he was, you know, they take turns, just like I'm sure as evenly as they possibly could have. And he sat out for a little bit, and I started to get, you know, like I want him
Frazzled a
in,
little
and
bit.
I took one step over to, you know, because I wanted to ask the coach, and then as soon as I did, I kind of
You're like,
remembered.
oh yeah, I'm a coach.
this is
Wait,
one of
there's
my
a
rules.
reason.
Yeah, and like what, you know, so we're all kind of blinded by the love of our children,
parenting, yeah.
And it turned out like he didn't feel good or some whatever. He was 5,
Yeah.
you know, excuse
Yeah.
he had, right?
Yeah.
So
Well, and the funny thing is too, I think as parents, it is a balancing act because you want your kid to do more, try harder, be better, go harder. I don't care what it is. I don't care if it's school. I don't care if it's sports. I don't care if it's whatever. You're like, no, do your best. And sometimes they're like, I don't want to give my best. Or sometimes they're like, this is my best, you know, whatever it might be.
Oh, yeah.
And so you're like, as a parent, sometimes you have unreasonable expectations set for your kids. Like, I don't understand why you're like, my daughter will give me she'll give me a report card and she'll have like a 97% in the class. And I'll be like, why don't you have 100? Like, what? She'll have 100. I'll be like, why don't you have 104? You should be the best in the class. You're top of your class. And she's like, it's still an A, lady. And she's like, calm down. I'm like, no, I want you to be the best in your class. And sometimes you're like, you got to kind of check yourself and be like, it's still an A.
It's so good.
She
Yeah.
did great. Like, and I
With
think
my
that's
son,
the same
it's
thing
like,
with-
I'm glad when he gets a B.
but I mean, in hockey, I'm saying like if he shot a goal, I'm sure you'd be like, why didn't you shoot 2? Or sometimes, you know, you're just
Yeah.
like, I want you to do your best, give it your
sure.
best all the time. And I think as parents, it's just part of what we do.
yeah,
So
no,
I
you're
think
right.
there's big things coming, right, Daryl? You think you
Yeah.
see big things coming to
Oh,
Las
yeah.
Vegas and hockey and everything
Exciting
else?
future for sure.
Well, is there anything else you think we should touch on before we wrap this up?
No, I think we've touched everything. Thanks for coming in, Coach.
Brian,
Yeah, I appreciate
you
that.
are super great. I hope that your kids excel and like go to the like Stanley Cup or whatever you guys do. All the things. Maybe they all become professional hockey players, and Daryl and I could just be sitting on a beach just sipping margaritas.
yeah.
Thanks to Hendrix.
Hopefully.
Right?
One day. Yeah.
All right, you guys. Well, this is Vegas Real Talk. I'm Jillian Batchelor,
I'm Daryl Hannah.
and this was amazing. Thank you so much, Brian. We appreciate your time.
See ya.
Bye.